him my real name. And I said, oh, yeah, I remember you. You used to tell me if school was canceled the next day. And I'm like, okay.
And when I was 3.
Yeah.
Very cool. You miss those Dayton
right.
days?
Well, I mean,
Dayton.
for a town its size, I grew up in Boston. So, when I first heard I was going to Dayton, I was like, great, a small town. But I used to do a lot of community theater before I got into television. And for a town its size, Dayton has a really good community theater scene. So I did a ton of shows, met a lot of great people. And if I hadn't been in Dayton, I wouldn't have met my wife. And, we're coming up on 25 years. So I can't complain on that front.
Congratulations.
Nice.
4 minutes. I'll say this before Kim comes on. There's the old saying, I'd rather be eating a girl from Dayton than dating a girl from Eaton.
Oh, wow.
We're live.
Wow.
Yeah, for those of you, I think everybody knows Eaton.
Hey, guys.
Hi.
Kim.
Hi, everybody. I made it. Hello there. Hey, Warren.
Hey, Kim.
Hi, hon. Good to see you.
Yeah, sorry, Dina can't join us, but she's kind of busy tonight, apparently.
Maybe a little bit.
I know.
Maybe a little bit.
And how come you're not working?
I am. I leave right from the show to go into work for an overnight shift.
Oh.
Ouch.
It is what it is.
Hey, that'll be fun though. There's a hurricane, right?
Mother Nature is a harsh
time.
mistress. This is where the rest of the year the job is actually not too difficult, but this is where things get crazy. But I feel like I'm doing something that's important. The data we get. The forecasters wouldn't have had any clue that this thing was strengthening if we didn't have aircraft in it last night.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
All right, let me get my drink.
People always ask, why are we still sending manned recon? And it's like, because there's some stuff you can't get unless you get inside the thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And actually see it, to see it over and get real-time data from it is so valuable. So I commend them all for that.
Okay, so hey, just a couple things quick. Don't forget to mute your phones.
2 minutes.
If you need to mute your mic, up at the top of the screen, you can mute your microphone if it gets noisy in the back. Keep your mic close to you. Keep your head towards the top of the screen if you can, so you don't get cut off by all of our little pictures down at the bottom. If you get knocked off, just reconnect to the link you have. And at the very beginning, Warren, so when we go live, we run an intro video for our friends at Oklahoma Weather Tracker TV. So just make sure you're quiet or you mute your mic during the intro video.
Sure thing.
And Phil, for that intro video, it's a cold ending right after it fades, just so you know.
All right. I just make sure it's off before I say anything so we can edit it out.
Well, and that's why I had to make it a cold ending, because otherwise it dragged on.
Okay.
Let's make like a mildly warm ending. How about that? Let's make like a hot ending.
What about a happy ending?
Yeah, happy ending. That'd be good too. There you go.
All been drinking earlier.
Everybody's been drinking already.
I was golfing, all right?
I wish I could drink.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, Warren, you can't.
Yeah, I'm stuck with lovely bottled water. I was gonna have a
30 seconds. 30 seconds.
I had painkillers all set ready to go, and gotta go to work.
Dang.
Damn Harvey. I'll tell you what, man, Harvey's screwing it for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Oh, I know it.
Already causing chaos and it hasn't made landfall yet.
Nope.
I know. Yeah.
All right, get ready.
Okay.
From tornadoes to hurricanes, blizzards, and everything in between, you're listening to the Stormfront Freaks podcast. Stormfront Freaks are former television meteorologist Mark Massaro, atmospheric science graduate and sky-worn storm spotter Brady Harris, digital meteorologist and weather producer on the Weather Channel app, Dina Knightley, former on-camera meteorologist at the Weather Channel, Kim Cunningham, Emmy-winning storm chaser and photographer, Chris Sanner, and I'm your announcer and Skywar Network coordinator, Mark Johnson. Now, here's the moderator of the Stormfront Freaks podcast, Skywar storm spotter and chaser, Phil Johnson.
All right, so welcome to the most entertaining weather podcast on your listening and viewing device. This is the Stormfront Freaks podcast. And if you happen to be watching the video recording on YouTube or Oklahoma Weather Tracker TV, it's Stormfront Freaks Raw. It's basically unedited. We got body slams and tag teams, all that good stuff. But if it is your first time listening, we hope you have as much fun as we do. And if you come back for more, God help you if you are coming back. But hey, this is episode 34, and our guest this week is former hurricane hunter and now a recon coordinator of the famed Air Force group that flies directly into these tropical storms like Hurricane Harvey. We have Warden Madden is with us today. And we'll also be discussing hurricane evacuation, gridlock, and how prepared various cities across the U.S. are along the coast to really deal with this. But don't forget to also stick around. We've got our Titan U Minute, Storm School, Weather Fools, some great weather resources. And obviously, who the hell knows what else we'll come up with. If it's anything like last episode, you'll probably get 5 minutes of constant laughter. Yeah.
Oh, that was brutal.
All right, so hey, I do want to quick highlight a couple great events that are coming up soon. Number one is the Twister Memorial for Bill Paxton. This is September 16th through the 17th. It's in Waukita, Oklahoma. It's hosted by the North Texas Storm Spotters. We've had an opportunity to talk to Jason Gentry, Jennifer Stark, and Dan Wallace from that group to kind of fill us in a little bit about the event. They're doing an artwork and photography contest. They're going to be gathering at the location of Aunt Meg's home from the movie. You know, and who doesn't love the movie? And that's really, they're honoring Bill in the movie. They're going to have a storm chase vehicle parade at 4 o'clock on the 16th. There is a Twister, the movie museum, also is there in town. They're going to have some great raffle prizes. If you want to learn more, just jump on Facebook and search for North Texas Storm Spotters. Or you can also on Facebook go to Twister the Movie Museum. Either one of those, go there. You can find the details on that event. The second event I want to highlight is the Indiana Storm Chaser Convention. This is coming up in November. This is November 18th. It's at Hendricks County Convention. Who's not muting their?
I muted twice. I'm sorry. I muted.
You're a TV guy.
I muted, and then I realized,
Hit the cough button, man. Hit the cough button.
People do that for him, though, right? Maz, you're not in charge of your mic volume. Adjusting it for you.
That's
my guy.
Where's your help? Where's your help?
All right. Anyway, so before I was so rudely interrupted, so November 18th, it's at the Hendricks County Convention Center, which is just west of Indianapolis. They've got some great guest speakers that are going to be talking about severe weather and target forecasting. If you're a chaser, they're going to have speakers from the National Weather Service, from television, storm chasers. They're going to have some Skywarn and ham radio speakers. It's basically open to all chasers and spotters, meteorologists, and if you're just a weather fan, you can do that as well. But registration has already started, even though this is in November. And I heard from Joe and Beth that they're already at about half capacity, and they've done that in just the first few days. So don't get locked out. They have early bird registration going until August 31st. If you're a student, it's just $15. If you're not a student, it's just $20. So talk about a great day, a lot of fun, and very inexpensive. It gives you enough time if you're coming from other states in the Midwest to come join us. But to find out more, go to IND for Indiana, INDChaserCon.com. One last thing, we don't want you to miss a show or be the last one to hear about it because you didn't get it right away when it was released. So just don't forget to hit subscribe on your favorite podcast app. And we'd really love to hear from you. and what it is you like about the show and what we can do to make it better for you. So we're going to be in the process tonight. MJ is also going to be polling our live viewers to kind of ask some of those same questions as well. But we would love to hear more feedback from you guys. So let's do this. Let's go ahead and introduce the team. It's happy hour. Let's find out what everybody's drinking tonight. MJ's up in Minnesota running the show. What do you got for us?
All right, we got her going tonight. Last week I went down south of the border. I did it again tonight. I'm with Tecate, is it?
Tecate. Oh,
and it's light because I have to watch my food here because nobody else is watching it anymore.
Tecate.
That's very good.
And it's great with lime, by the way, with lime and salt too. Yes.
And it's good with a shot of tequila. I'll say that.
A shot of tequila. Yeah.
All right. So I've got what I'm drinking tonight, and unfortunately Dina wasn't here because she'd probably appreciate it.
Ooh.
I'm drinking. This is called Kinky Pink. Kinky Pink. So I'm drinking a little Kinky Pink and strawberry soda.
Nice.
It's about half and half because this thing's only like 35 proof. So I'd probably sip it out of the bottle, but I am doing half and half with a Kinky Pink strawberry soda.
Wow. Very manly, Phil. Very manly.
Yeah, exactly. I gotta. Yeah. All right, Maz, what do you got?
Hey, I want to know, what do you think Dina is drinking right now?
Harvey juice. Drinking some Harvey juice.
Yeah. No kidding. Hey, we miss you. She's
coffee.
But anyway, yeah, exactly.
Coffee. That's
Hey,
right.
I've got I'm back. I went to the fridge and I just had my Guinness draft, so I was back to it. And what's funny is I was drinking, I was kind of like, I'm not really in the mood for this one tonight, so I'm gonna have to come up with something else just in case to find out what my moods are like. In case I'm lighthearted or we need to get some more beer. So,
slam it. You'll be in the mood.
Is that what it is?
Okay. Yeah, just
all right.
tip it back.
Mm-hmm.
You'll be in the mood. Kim's in Atlanta. What are you drinking?
Take a guess.
IPA.
Yes.
Light.
Ding, ding,
Bud
ding,
Light.
ding. Yeah.
Oh.
I'm back to the Citradelic. I have to finish it up in the fridge. So I thought, I'll just grab this. And New Belgium, of course, it's a tangerine IPA. It's absolutely delicious. It's great for the summer. Very refreshing and very hoppy. So that's me.
It's like garage sale night. What I got left in the fridge?
Well, I gotta finish it up.
You need a shirt that says "Don't worry, be hoppy."
That's right.
Right?
I like that. I like that. Get me one. Thank you.
All right, Brady's in Columbus. Brady, what are you drinking tonight?
First of all, go Bucks! 1 week away from opening night, so go Bucks! Tonight I have a 2014 glass of Pinot. So I'm keeping it classy, Hurricane Harvey. I'm trying to be respectful. So keeping it.
That looks like Concord grape.
Trust me, it's definitely not. Look, you can see the viscosity. It's definitely not grape juice.
I see me.
All right, well, let's do this. Let's jump to our famed and esteemed guest tonight. I know he's got to get to work, so he's tipping back a bottle of water. But Kim, can you introduce our guest?
Oh, I'd love to. Well, Warren and I go back to the 90s, so we've known each other for quite a while. And by the way, we've got quite a group of Ohio people here because Warren actually was an on-camera meteorologist in Dayton for WHIO. But currently, that's right. But currently, as you heard, he's at the National Hurricane Center. As a matter of fact, from here, he is heading to work tonight as an aerial reconnaissance coordinator. So he's on the ground, but he used to be up in the air as a hurricane hunter, and we'll talk more about that in just a second. But during his years in television, he was also in the U.S. Air Force Reserve, and he also was at the Weather Channel, and that's how I know Warren for 10 years. Is that right, Warren, 10 years?
10 years full-time and
10 years
about
full.
7 part-time, yeah.
Okay, great. And that's how I know we worked nights together. We had a blast. We had quite the evening team back in the good old days when it was really a lot of fun. And you could get kind of quirky and really get geeky at the Weather Channel. All right, so then hurricane hunter status. This is incredible. He joined in 1998 with the 53rd Weather Reconnaissance Squadron. He served as an aerial reconnaissance weather officer until he retired as a lieutenant colonel.
Very cool.
Sir,
wow,
very
amazing.
cool. Lieutenant Colonel in 2012, flying over 1,000 hours, including missions into some historic hurricanes. We're talking about Rita, Ivan, Wilma, Floyd, and even Typhoon Meji. Absolutely amazing. And in 2014, Warren was located in Miami, where he moved to the National Hurricane Center to work there, but also worked at Lockheed, right? And we'll talk about that too. But received a bachelor's degree in computer science from MIT. Amazing. In 1985, a bachelor's degree in meteorology from Penn State, and a master's degree in computer science from Wright State, and also was commissioned as lieutenant in the United States Air Force through the Reserve Officer Training Corps, ROTC, in 1985.
He is way smarter
Yeah.
than all of us.
Way,
Yeah.
way
How are you
smart.
still not in
I know.
school? That's like 4 degrees
Right.
that was just listed off. That's crazy.
Warren is smart, and he loves board games, don't you?
Yeah, you might say that. When we moved to Miami, we lost a lot of room for our house in Atlanta, and we ended up devoting one of the bedrooms to our board game collection. I sucked my wife into the hobby, and at last count, we have we inventoried when we moved all down. We've got about 900 games now.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Wow.
and in the crowd that I game with, that would actually be considered on the smaller side of a medium-sized collection.
Wow.
Jeez, that's crazy.
Warren, do you have Avalon? Do you have Avalon? I was wondering. I just played
Yeah,
that.
I've got some. Well, I've got a bunch of the old Avalon Hill games from way back when. But yeah, a lot of the games we have are actually imports from Europe. Board gaming is very popular over there, so that's where I grew up with all the standard Milton Bradley, Hasbro, Parker Brothers stuff, and then got into war games and Dungeons and Dragons. Standard geek. And then in the mid 90s, I went to a board game convention in Columbus. It was Origins, and discovered this trend of European games starting to come over, and just really decided I enjoyed them and sort of grew from there.
Awesome.
You knew Milton
That's
and
incredible.
Bradley?
No, I'm not that old. I'm old. I'm not that old.
So, Warren, why don't you tell us, some people may not know what an aerial reconnaissance coordinator is. Why don't you explain that to everyone?
Okay, so my office, my boss, and my 2 coworkers are what is called CARCA, Chief Aerial Reconnaissance Coordination, All Hurricanes. And lately, I always hear that farmers insurance commercial. We are CARCA, bump, 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 bump. But our job is we are the people who organize all of the reconnaissance for the National Hurricane Center. So every morning during storm season, I'm actually an Air Force civilian employee, but I'm working at the NOAA facility, NHC. So every morning during storm season, myself or one of the other 2, we go across the hall, talk to the forecasters, and we say, what are your reconnaissance needs for the day? And a lot of days they'll say, yeah, we're good. And then we'll go back and we'll just continue with our training regimen, because since we're the only squadrons in the world, the Air Force and the NOAA squadrons, that do what we do, we're also our own schoolhouses. So you bring in a completely qualified, say, for example, C130 pilot. They know how to fly C130s, but they've always been told, don't go anywhere near thunderstorms. We now have to teach them how to do that safely. And so, we're always training. That's what we're doing during the off season. And then on days like today and tomorrow and past couple of days, we go out and say, what do you need? They'll say, well, we need flights and we need them at these times. And so then we come back, we talk to the squadrons, get them to organize the flights. They come back with the takeoff times, the crews, everything that they need to tell us. And then we put out what's called the plan of the day. And that's available on the National Hurricane Center site that lists all of the recon flights that will take place in the next day with an outlook to a succeeding day. And then while the flights are flying, all of their data is flowing back through our small office in the National Hurricane Center via satellite. And it's our job to look at that, quality control it, make sure that it makes sense in the scope of the overall meteorological picture, and then get that information over to the forecasters primarily, but also out to the rest of the world. So when Kim or myself or any other meteorologist on the air is talking about, here's Hurricane Harvey located at this latitude, longitude, this pressure, et cetera, odds are that data came through my office from a Hurricane Hunter aircraft in these situations. So. Wow. So when we get into these situations, we're in 24-hour ops. So we're a 3-person unit. So my boss takes the day shift, RHIP, and then myself and my coworker.
Right,
fortunately, we're both night people, so we tend to alternate. So one storm he'll take overnights, I'll take swings, and then the next storm will switch. So this was my turn for doing overnights. So I go in about 10:30 and I work till about 7 or 8. And till my boss comes in and we do the handoff. And, tonight I'm going to have a C-130 mission active. I'm going to have a P-3 Orion mission going through at about 7,000 feet They're doing the P3s have more advanced instrumentation because they do a lot more research. And so one of the things they have is they have a tail Doppler radar. So they're going out and doing more research on how the storm structure is, what makes it tick, and they'll be out there. And then we'll also have our G4, which flies at high altitudes, about 41 to 45,000 feet, not through the storm, but around the periphery, dropping a lot of instrument packages, dropsondes out, so that we can get a lot more information into the computer models, because we've all seen spaghetti models, where the models just go blap out in a massive widespread. And the hope is that and not the hope, but the actual experience is by getting these G4 flights out and getting a lot more sondes from data poor areas into the models, it helps converge those models. So of course, now we're very interested in where this thing will make landfall and, what will happen after that because of the flood threat.
So you mentioned, you mentioned something about flying into thunderstorms. How do you do that?
Yeah, seriously, that was
very carefully. Oh no, I know that's clear. Honestly, in the Air Force C-130 standard manual, there's a paragraph in it that says C-130 aircraft will not fly within 20 miles of any active thunderstorm. And then there's subparagraph A, except WC-130J aircraft on task storm missions. So a standard C-130J has a crew of three, two pilots and a loadmaster. Our base aircraft, and this is the WC-130J, which is, we have 10 of them based out of Keesler Air Force Base, Mississippi, the 53rd Weather Recon. And they have a minimum crew of 5, 2 pilots, a navigator, a weather officer, which is what I did, and the loadmaster, who also operates the dropsonde equipment. So we kept the navigator because we need somebody who can watch that radar continually when we're in the storm environment, because the pilots have their hands full flying the plane. Yeah. The weather officer's focusing on the winds and lining up properly and getting into that exact center. The loadmaster, he's the only guy, or she. We actually have a fairly large proportion of women in the squadron as well, across all crew positions. And so they're the only ones who can't be strapped in all the time, because they have to load the dropsondes into the tube that launches out the bottom of the aircraft. There have been times we've gone negative G and people have hit the ceiling. So I mean, we've done this the first intentional penetration of a hurricane was done back during World War II. And I got a great story on that, but probably too long for what we're trying to do here tonight. But in any case, we've learned over a long period of time what is safe to fly in and what we have to fly around. So when we're trying to get into the storm, the weather officer's kind of like the bombardier on an old World War II bomber, if you've ever seen those kind of movies, where they're calling out course corrections to the pilots to try to line up on the winds, because we're flying with the winds off the left wing, trying to fly into low pressure. And so as we do that, I'll call out, I'll see the winds are starting to shift. I'll say, pilot left 20. The navigator's job is to look at the radar and determine whether or not that's a safe course for us to take. If he or she determines it is safe, they'll call out a new true heading and the pilot will turn to it. Otherwise, the nav might say, wait a few minutes while we get past this cell and then turn to it. And then we gradually will go into the eye. And in some of the big storms, we penetrate the storms at about 180 knots, roughly a little over 200 miles an hour. In some of the big Cat 5s, the winds we're encountering the eye wall are right around 180 knots. Yeah. So we're crabbing into the wind by about 45 degrees. We're flying, say, due north is the direction the plane's traveling. In the height of the eye wall, our nose is actually pointing northwest. And then in the space of just a few minutes, as we break out of the eye wall and into the eye, the winds drop off dramatically, the plane straightens out, we hit the center, we mark it, we get a sonde out to get the central pressure, and then as we're flying to the other eye wall, all of a sudden we're now getting winds from the right, and we're cranking in the crab angle to the right, so our nose is pointing to the right of our direction of travel. So on a typical missions will last 8 to 10 hours, usually about 6 hours or so in the storm, 4 penetrations. You're going through 8 eye walls on a typical storm.
Wow. Oh man. How many sondes do you drop?
Well, typically we will drop if we're at 5,000 or higher. And a lot of people think, we fly over the top of the storms and drop in. No way. On the weak storms, tropical depression up to tropical storm force, as long as the turbulence isn't too bad, we can go in as low as 1,000 or 1,500 feet. The ocean is real close at that point.
Wow.
Oh my God.
you get a good look at the ocean and the wave patterns and the wind patterns. As the storm gets stronger, we're up at 5,000 or 10,000 feet. Like tonight, now that we're into hurricane status, in all likelihood, the planes will be flying at 10,000. And so we'll drop sondes in the center, so we get that exact central pressure. But we'll also, at the request of the forecasters, we'll drop sondes in the eye walls. And sometimes they'll want to know what's going on out. Our typical legs are about 105 nautical miles out in each direction, which usually gets you out to about the edge of the tropical storm force winds. So sometimes if they're very interested in what's going on out far, if we're up at 10,000, we'll drop a sonde out by the turn point to see what the winds are doing down at the surface. Like tonight, they might request a sonde out in the northwest quadrant to see how fast those tropical storm force winds are getting toward the Texas coast. So we have the sondes we drop for vertical sampling. The plane is instrumented. And then we have an interesting instrument called the step frequency microwave radiometer, which is able to, I know, big word. We call it the SFMR.
SMFR.
Yeah, or one of the people switched around, and sometimes we just call it the Smurf. But it's a really interesting piece of tech because it uses microwaves. It's a passive antenna, but it's looking at microwaves at 6 different channels bouncing off the surface of the ocean. And depending upon how churned up the ocean is, through some very complicated math, it can actually spit out an estimate of surface wind speed. So it's a day-night instrument. I mean, this is a big improvement over what we used to do, because before, the only way we could estimate surface winds was using the Mark I eyeball looking down at the ocean surface. We literally had a picture book that would say, if you see these features, streaks, wave patches, foam patches, estimate these surface winds. Well, that worked great if you could A, see the surface, and B, it was daytime. The advantage of the SFMR is that it's a day-night instrument. And so it really, really helps the forecasters get a sense of what's happening at the surface with the wind speed. And it's become almost a mandatory piece of equipment. If the SFMR isn't working when they step out to the plane, they're going to the spare in all likelihood because they really need that SFMR. So, really interesting stuff we do out there. I loved the job. The only reason I retired is because I aged out. You're only allowed to go to 28 years of service as lieutenant colonel. I bumped into it. And so I was out of the game for a couple of years. And when the job opened up at Karka, I decided I wanted back in. So I put in for it and was fortunate enough to get it.
So let me ask you this. Go ahead, Brady. You've been
you're fine.
trying to jump in and kind of hiding in the corner when someone else asks.
Oh yeah, well it's the lighting. It's the lighting. That's but so Warren, give us an idea. Like, you're in the plane. What can you see? Is the plane shaking? What is it kind of like being in that environment?
Okay. Well, it does vary a little bit. I mean, the analogy I like to use is a fish in a river. If the river is flowing really fast but smoothly, fish doesn't know, just looks down and says, dang, that bottom's going by real fast.
Yeah.
But then let the river start getting over some rocks, and then the fish feels it. I mean, there have been times where I've been in Cat 5s where I've gotten less turbulence than you'd get flying in a jetliner across the country in winter. Because think about it. If you're flying across the country in winter, you're likely in the jet stream, which likely in the winter has winds of 150 to 200 miles an hour. Yeah. But then again, there have been times where I've been in storms that weren't even hurricanes. The worst beating I took was not from a hurricane. It was actually from a tropical storm that was 4 days after September 11th. And this was off the coast of Florida. And it was interesting because we were supposed to fly that morning and heard about the first plane going to the first tower, saw the second plane going to the second tower on TV. And of course, they shut the airspace down. Mm-hmm. So we didn't fly that morning. A couple of days later, the system was growing stronger. It was making an approach toward Tampa and that area. So they gave us a special dispensation to say, go ahead and fly. So normally we'd go out and we'd hear air traffic control talking on frequencies and all. Dead silence. The spookiest sound you ever didn't hear.
Wow.
And every so often we'd hear little blips, blips, blep. And it took us a little while to figure it out. It was the fighter pilots talking on their frequency hopping radios and skipping across our frequency. And so I was like, pilot weather, we do have all our identification friend and foe codes loaded, because we're flying down at 5,000 feet off of Tampa, home of Central Commander, and I didn't want some fighter pilot shooting first and asking questions later.
Oh my gosh.
So in the meantime, we go out there to fly, and this was Tropical Storm Gabrielle. It was trying to become a hurricane. Ran out of time, as it turned out, but we went in and at 5,000 and we just got beat to hell. Lost a couple of thousand feet and then rocket it up another couple thousand. So you see the G meter pegged to 2 or 3 Gs and then go -1. The plane was shaking so violently, I could not read my instruments for about 30 seconds.
Wow.
Were you
And then,
scared?
you know, people always ask me, was I scared at any time when I'm flying? And I can honestly say that, and maybe this is because I was too dumb to be scared, but I was always so focused on doing my job that I didn't have time to be either sick or scared.
Yeah.
Because, you know, the U.S. taxpayer was literally paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to put me out in that storm to do my job.
Yeah.
I didn't have time to screw it up. I had to do that.
Bam.
Well, we all
And-
thank you.
That's that military
Yeah,
training
all of
too.
us.
Yeah.
That military training.
I'm geeking out right now.
So hey, can we use Harvey as an example? Warren, at what point are they deciding that okay, it's developing enough that we want to investigate it? You know, and if you take Harvey as the example and where it's gone and come, I guess what was the decision process here as that's been moving?
Okay. All right. Well, this actually goes back a ways now, because remember, Harvey originated as a system coming off of Africa a couple of weeks ago now. And then as it's coming across the Atlantic, of course, the forecasters are looking at the computer models and the satellite pictures and all. And the area of responsibility for the hurricane hunters is roughly from about a couple hundred miles east of the Leeward and Windward Islands all the way west to Hawaii. So our main bases, the Air Force Squadron is based in Mississippi, the NOAA Squadron is based at Lakeland, Florida, and we have a forward operating location at St. Croix in the U.S. Virgin Islands. And so in this case, a couple of weeks ago when the system was coming across, at one point we went in the morning, we went across to the forecasters and say, what do you need? And they said, well, we think this is going to, it looks like this is going to try to develop, and we want to make sure that we warn the islands in time. So they told us to get some planes down to St. Croix to be able to fly into it. So we got them down there, and then they decided, yes, it looked like it was going to develop and would be a threat to the islands. So we flew a couple of missions as it was approaching and went through the Leeward Islands. It got into the Eastern Caribbean and fell apart. So at that point, they discontinued advisories, and we stopped flying it. And then but of course they kept watching it. So as it crept closer and closer to Guatemala and Honduras and Nicaragua, it started getting a little more iffy again as whether it was trying to redevelop. So at some point they decided, okay, we've got to start flying this again. So at that point we started flying it out of Mississippi. And then we took a break again when it crossed over the Yucatan. And then again, when the models were showing it could redevelop as it came off the Yucatan, as these storms often do in the Bay of Campeche, we put another mission on. And so that's when we started flying it again. Mm-hmm. And so now, we've been going ahead and we've been throwing all of our assets at it. We've had, our WCs have been in it, the P3s have been in it, the G4 has been flying around it. We also have a Global Hawk that is a collaborative research effort between NASA and NOAA that has been flying over on top of it at least once already. I think they're doing it again tomorrow, where they'll fly this big long lawnmower pattern up at 65,000 feet or so over the top of the storm, dropping a lot of sondes out to try and get more information about what's going on in the storm and around it. So a lot of work goes into getting these things, but as you can see, when it's out over the open water, it used to be back in the old days, all you would have is ship reports and very little real information about it. So now we have a lot more information about it, and so hopefully the end product is, it's been shown that our data improves forecasts by about 25%.
Wow.
So whereas before forecasters might have to put out warnings, 200 miles wide, now they might be able to narrow it down to 150, 125 miles because it helps, both in terms of the direction, the path forecast and the intensity forecast. And so, the end goal, of course, is all about protecting people. If our data helps improve the forecast, that means the forecasts are better, which means the evacuation orders are more tailored, which hopefully means that people will pay attention when the emergency managers say, get out. Because we all know the story of the boy who cried wolf. What we never want to have happen is somebody sitting on a house 2 blocks from the beach, looking out at the storm surge creeping in and saying, I should have listened. I should have gotten out, and now it's too late.
Yeah.
That's why we put ourselves out there. we do everything we can to minimize the risk. We haven't lost a plane since '74. Hope to never lose one again. But there's always going to be some risk there. And we do it because it helps hopefully protect people and make them take these forecasts seriously and get out when they need to.
Good. So how? Let's do this just on a time sake, and we know you need to get going here eventually as well, Warren. How can listeners follow you and your team on the web and on social media?
Well, the main site, of course, is the National Hurricane Center site, and they do an excellent job of getting their products out. They have, in addition to the actual site, they have RSS feeds if you want to follow it that way. They also are now doing podcasts. You know, after every advisory, there's a podcast you can subscribe to that will talk about what they're finding in the storm. As far as the recon data specifically, I'm still working on improving. You know, it is available on the Hurricane Hunter site, but it's or rather the Hurricane Center site, but it's not as well organized as I would like. So I'm actually, again, the whole computer science meteorology thing, I'm actually diving in now and trying to write some programs to make it more accessible and more easy to find on the Hurricane Center site. I don't know if I'll get to it finished this year because obviously kind of busy right now, but that is a long-term goal. And then, of course, on Twitter, the Hurricane Center has multiple feeds, and then there's also there's other Twitter feeds for the 53rd Weather Recon Squadron and also the NOAA Hurricane Hunters that you can follow. And they post some really nice snapshots and videos. Like there was a great video this morning that came out of the NOAA plane that was out. I mentioned earlier the tail Doppler radar. It showed the loop of the plane flying through Harvey all overnight and seeing how that eye coalesced and was drifting northwest, and it just really impressive. So there is a lot of stuff out there. You have to go looking for it a little bit, but it can. And
then what about you personally?
Personally, I just started up a Twitter for myself, Warren Madden WX. And so I'm, still getting the feel for it, but in all likelihood, it's going to pretty much just be about meteorology. And, I obviously, as a government employee, I can't, there are limits to what I can do, and including, I can't scoop, the information before it comes out. But I certainly will do my best to point out things that I see and maybe give tidbits of behind-the-scenes information when I can about what goes into producing the recon and how that plays into the actual forecast process.
Cool.
Warren, get a Snapchat, Warren. Get a Snapchat.
I haven't gone that far yet.
One step at a time. Hey, guys, it's time.
I'm getting to that age where this technology is getting just so.
You got really young. You got plenty of time.
All right. Hey, it's time for our lightning round, our speed round of fun questions for our guest. And Warren's already mentioned this, but I had found this out previously that he is a fan of Worlds of War.
World of Warcraft. Yeah,
World of Warcraft. I totally blew it. Sorry, Worlds of Warcraft. Wow. So anyway, here's what we're going to do. We're going to play our version of Hollywood Squares. So we have our celebrity panel of our freaks. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask them a question, and they're going to answer it. And then, Warren, you just have to agree or disagree with their answer.
Or laugh at us, whichever.
Right. You all have to do with World of Warcraft. So here's the first question. I'm going to go to Brady.
Oh, dangerous.
But you know what? I'm going to do this. Warren, I'll let you pick. So you got Brady, Maz, MJ, and Kim.
I've played well.
Don't pick me.
Well, Kim, I'm going to get, I know that you're going to hate me for this, but I'm going to at least get you out of the way here so you can breathe easy after you do your questions.
Kim first. All right, Kim, you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
A Nelf is just short for a night elf. True or false?
I'm going to say true.
Warren?
And I will agree with that.
Yeah, and Circle gets
Hey!
Very good.
Kim?
Very good. All right, Warren. You got Brady, MJ, and Maz.
Let's go with Maz.
All right.
All right, Maz.
It gets
What kind
harder,
of-
right, as we go.
It does. I actually gave Kim the
boy.
easy one.
I'd like to say
Oh.
Night Elf. It's Night Elf, okay?
What kind of fictional characters populate the town of Booty Bay?
Well,
Really? Really?
Come on, Maz. This is easy.
What? There's no multiple choice on this one?
No. It's just what kind of fictional characters populate the town of Booty Bay?
That would be the Booty Bay Hunters.
Oh, my God.
Booty Bay
We're done.
hunters.
We're
All
done.
right, Warren.
I will disagree. The answer is goblins.
Well,
Yeah.
That
That's
is
my man.
correct.
No.
I had both goblins or pirates would qualify.
True, yes.
Okay.
All right, so Circle gets that square. Go ahead, Warren. You got MJ and Brady.
Brady.
All righty. I've played
All right,
WoW
Brady.
before, so get ready.
Here we go. What kind of character is otherwise known as Shammy?
Oh God. Is it? Wait, like what race?
I don't know that it's a race as much as it's like a position or a title.
Is it an orc?
An orc.
I guess I didn't.
No.
I didn't understand.
I've got it. So he says orc. So Warren, agree or disagree?
I will disagree. A chamois is short for shaman. My first character in WoW.
And you are correct. All right, so Circle gets that square. That'd be a tic-tac-toe, but I'll let you do one more. MJ, this is for
good.
you.
Here we go.
Finish it
All
off.
What is a man cow?
Man cow.
What is a man cow?
Wow.
I think you're having one, aren't you?
A
Keep it clean.
giant. I don't know. A giant.
A giant. A man cow is a giant. Do you agree or disagree, Warren?
In a sense, he is not completely wrong, but a man cow is actually a tauren, a race of the horde that are basically, cows that are, are able to be one of the main characters. I have several characters who are tauren.
Well, you are
actually
correct.
based on
You're
they're
correct.
based on the American Indian mythos.
Circle gets the square, so you were 4 for 4. Great
He
job.
Wow.
Wow.
Great job.
Wow,
So-
literally.
So anyway, thanks for following along and having fun, Warren. Hey, weatherproshop.com. Hey, these guys are the only source for high quality Skywarn weather spotter merchandise and reference tools. You got to check out their embroidered t-shirts, polos, and caps for both men and women. They got some great embroidered Skywarn gear. Jim Cantori loved his, by the way. They also carry great laminated reference guides for spotters and chasers, including their new dual pole radar training pack. And don't forget, new customers setting up an account, they're going to receive a 5% discount off their order. And for a limited time, Stormfront Freaks podcast listeners, you'll get an additional 5% off at checkout when you enter the code STORM, STORM. So all kinds of reasons why you should visit and support our partner, weatherproshop.com. So we're going to take a short break. Our podcast listeners will hear the latest edition of the Titans U Minute with Chris Sanner, but stay right here. We'll be back with Warren and the Freaks to discuss how prepared our coastal cities are for hurricane evacuations. All right. 5 minutes. MJ, you counting us?
Got
Okay.
it. We're on a 5-minute clock.
Bam.
Nice.
All right. 5-minute break. Warren, great job, man.
Oh, that was
Oh,
fabulous.
man. Holy
That
crap.
was awesome.
Our live viewers are loving it. They were loving the stories. For sure.
Oh, I bet.
I'm jealous.
I've got so many more that we won't have time for.
You should
Nice.
write a book. You should write a book, Warren. You
I
should
mean-
write a book.
I still have to read Buzz's, by the way. He gave me a copy
Oh,
so
I know.
long ago, and friend
I
of
plugged
Buzz.
that last week. I plugged it 2 weeks ago. Everybody
Warren,
should read his
I
book.
actually just got a call from the National Hurricane Center. You actually can stay. They're going to bump your shift back. You'll be getting
Wow.
to stay.
There's always Warren 2, the sequel episode, if you want.
That's correct. That's correct. Called Harvey. Harvey's going to take a break for a while.
Yeah.
Hey, if you could do this for us, Warren, if you could do a quick plug and say this is Warden Madden of the Hurricane Hunters or whatever you want to say, and you're listening to Stormfront Freaks podcast.
Just say king of all I see.
This is Warren Madden from the Air Force. I better not say Air Force because, of course, we got to be careful because of the old.
Sure, that's fine.
Okay,
I don't care. No one's listening anyway.
Yeah. All right, let's try that. This is former Hurricane Hunter and Recon Coordinator Warren Madden, and you're listening to the Stormfront Freaks podcast.
Good.
That'll work.
Hey. We'll take it. All right, so here's what we'll do when we come back. So we're on a timed 5-minute break, so we're giving Oklahoma Weather Tracker TV 5 minutes to loop their forecasts and all that good stuff. But when we come back, I'll set up the topic, which really was wanting to talk a little bit about, where everybody thinks we are with our coastal cities and our evacuations, and the fact that, there's really no national evacuation plan. It's all coordinated through the counties and the cities and the state. And I mean, there's there's got to be a lot of buy-in, and so some places it has worked great. Other places have had histories of it not working so good. And we're kind of going through it right now, and I haven't heard a whole lot. Bless you.
Thank you.
Haven't heard a whole lot about how the evacuation's been going in Texas, but I'll bring up a couple articles, one talking about Tampa Bay, and then the other talking a little bit about Rita and Houston 10 years ago. So I'll just bring that up, but we can just kind of talk about it. And obviously we got with Harvey, there's a lot to bring up in how we think that works and how well it's improved, over the years, if it really has, and how difficult it is, all that good stuff.
Well, it's been
and then
a
once
while.
we're
When's
done,
the last time we evacuated? I mean, when's the last time we had to? It's been a while, hasn't it?
Well, it's been quite a while since
anybody
we've
since
had
an
a major
evacuation
hurricane hit
Yeah.
the U.S.
Yeah.
Like 4,000 some days, I think.
Oh. Okay.
And then anyway, when we're done with that, we'll go to our break. I'll take a pause, and then we'll sign off with the Oklahoma Weather Tracker TV people, and then we'll be done, and we'll kiss you goodbye and wish you the best of luck at that point. Warren.
Sure thing.
You drinking? Did you get any sleep today? Then did you rest at all?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I got home about 10 a.m. I finished work about 8 because I wanted to see that first penetration from the morning flight, and then grabbed some breakfast, and then got to bed about 10 a.m. Got up about 4, and fortunately, I can sleep anytime really. So
as a matter of fact, I remember seeing you sleeping a couple times at the Weather Channel.
We're on, Warren. We're on. Wake up. Doesn't miss a
Sleep
beat.
anywhere. That is
Doesn't
the
miss
truth.
a beat.
Nope.
1 minute.
You
So
were
I'll be
always a night person anyway.
Yes,
Yeah.
I did not mind working nights from that standpoint. It probably wasn't the best from my forward career, but it definitely worked well with my circadian rhythm.
Yes, it did. You guys say hi to Sharon for me, okay?
I will. I definitely will.
Okay, good. Oh, that's so good seeing you.
Yes, same here.
Got
Same
30
here.
seconds.
And just thank you for everything you've done, Warren. Your service, just your time helping people, it's just awesome.
No, I've really enjoyed it and liked doing it, so I can't complain on that.
15.
Yeah.
10. 5. 1. Go.
All right. Welcome back. Hey, so let's discuss whose idea it was to come up with naming tropical storms.
Was it Warren's?
Wow.
Can't take credit on that one.
No, I'm kidding. That's not our discussion. I thought that'd be funny, though, because of all the complaints of people
Yeah.
bitching about naming winter storms. At some point, someone had to come up with naming tropical storms, and
And they did, and it was women's
did we do
names.
that?
100 years down the road, I'm going to name
Really?
Snowflake. So
I could actually
storm.
talk about it, but I know that's not the topic for today.
Well, anyway, what we wanted to talk about with tropical storm activity really flourishing right now in both the Atlantic and the Pacific this year, we wanted to discuss the hurricane evacuation implications faced by a lot of coastal cities. And certainly with Harvey right now, we're dealing with that in Texas. But one of the articles I wanted to bring up, which is a little fitting, was 12 years ago, there was good old Hurricane Rita, happened right after Katrina, and it was this was an article from Crone.com. Matt Levin was discussing this. He said it was the worst traffic jam in Houston history. For some, the gridlock wouldn't end until 24 hours later. And I want to share some of the stats with you guys of what happened. So 2.5 million people hit the road ahead of the storm's arrival. And what happened was more than 100 evacuees died in the exodus. Drivers waited in traffic for 20 plus hours, and heat stroke impaired or killed dozens of people. So where are we at with hurricane evacuations, and have we gotten any better over the years? What's going on with that? What do you guys think?
Well, how much notice they get is big, right? I mean, that's huge.
Yeah, but you know what? My pastor was down. Where was he? In Florida? I forgot exactly when. And he was telling me he was down visiting, and they started issuing tropical storm warnings, hurricane warnings, and I think it was like a level 1 or category 1. And he asked his neighbors, "What are you guys going to do?" And they're like, "Oh, we're going to stay. No big deal." And then he asked the neighbor on the other side, "What are you going to do?" "Yeah, it shouldn't be a big deal. We're all going to be okay." So their family went down to the beach. When they came back from the beach, everyone had almost finished loading up their cars to leave. And he's like, "Where are y'all going?" You know?
Yeah.
So I think it's one of those things where who takes how well you take it seriously. Sometimes it depends on how well other people take it seriously, especially if you're not from the area and you don't really know who to go by.
Yeah, Maz, and also I think it's, have you ever experienced a storm like that before? And that's why I think the hurricane drought in the United States is so dangerous, because people that have never been in a storm like this, they won't take it as seriously as people that have. So, I think that has a big part of, the evacuation plan is, some people might wait till the last minute because they're thinking they're going to tough it out until they get a mandatory evacuation. But by then, everyone's doing the same thing, and the roadways get clogged. So I think people need to be much more proactive than than they are.
I'm going to jump in and say we got a couple of our live viewers chatting, and one of them's in San Antonio and says they've already received a lot of Corpus Christi evacuees, and they've got an evacuation center set up at the AT&T Center. And then another of our viewers is in the Fort Worth area and said they're flying in newborns with health issues from Corpus as well. So I guess there's some hope that some folks are heeding the warnings for at least for this one.
Yeah. So Warren, what do you think?
Well, it's interesting because the point is well taken that people who don't have a lot of experience with storms, they don't know what to do. And that's one of the things we've seen during the past hurricane drought, and really over the last 20 years. So many more people have moved into coastal areas that are at risk from hurricanes, and they don't know, they don't have any experience. And so, they'll talk to neighbors and stuff, but still, it's just a sheer logistics nightmare in trying to get so many people out on a limited number of roads going out. And then even if you have been through a strong hurricane, sometimes that can, in some senses, work to be a detriment, because I've heard stories of people who, like on the Mississippi coast, who survived Camille back in '69, and they couldn't conceive of a worse storm than Camille. And, so here comes Katrina. And they're thinking, okay, well, this place that I want to stay survived Camille, so it's going to be safe for Katrina because Camille was the worst case. In one case, I know of a guy who thought like that and spent most of Katrina in a tree with the floodwaters all around him. He survived, but still, we saw what happened with Jim Cantori at the Veterans Home there. I know where that is. I've driven by that many times. Is that just a few miles west of Keesler? Yeah. And just thinking about it's one thing to think, okay, I survived this storm before. Here comes another one. Well, that's not as bad. I don't need to worry about that. But each storm is individual, and you have to take them seriously. And hopefully people will. I mean, we're getting better with social media and stuff and getting the message out. But in the end, there is that inertia of people saying, well, and that kind of blindsiding to saying, it's really not going to be that bad, is it? And again, like I said earlier.
That's part of the downfall, as Brady was talking about, people that haven't lived through it and maybe aren't evacuating. Part of the problem with Rita was because so many people had seen Katrina just right before and had seen the devastation. There were far more people that were now getting out, taking it seriously, and maybe even people that didn't need to evacuate were getting on the roads and getting out, and that caused, so the other scenario is too many people are leaving all at once.
Right.
Yeah.
Another thing too is if you think about it, over the last 40 years or so, the number of people that own cars has risen significantly, and suburbanization all around the coastal areas, but the number of roads, especially the main roads and the highways, has not increased proportionately. So now you've got so many more people with cars trying to get out, but the number of roads still about the same. So I don't know how it could get better.
Bicycles. That's the answer.
Right.
Or I think, as many people that can have supplies and things already packed, so that as soon as they get the order, or even beforehand, they can leave before things start getting clogged and congested. I think that's going to help, if people can be proactive, at least some people, they can be proactive about it. So it gives them enough time. But
Right.
there's not much you can do. You can't just have hurricane designated roads that are only to be used in the case of a hurricane.
Right.
It's just not going to, you're not going to build roads just for a hurricane. That's,
Well, it's always been a problem too that a lot of people think they have to travel 100 miles, 200 miles inland, where sometimes they don't need to travel that far just to get away from the surge or whatever they're trying to get away from. And I think that's a problem too. You got a lot of people that don't even need to evacuate, and they just get freaked out and they try to, and that just really hurts the efforts of those who really need to get out.
Well, and this time too, because it's supposed to be like 30 inches of rain possible
maybe more.
down there.
Yeah,
and,
right.
maybe
right.
where do you go?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dallas, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, the key is you can't plan for every single scenario either. And every city is different. We were talking about this at the break. Is evacuation plans and routes are all dictated through the cities and the counties and then even the state, but there's really no federal level plan involved there. And so you have to get from each of these cities and counties to have a bunch of different scenarios and have it all laid out. And if there's a certain city or if there's a certain county where maybe it's that emergency manager or that department, or maybe they don't have the funds and they can't put in the resources to pre-plan this kind of stuff,
Right.
that community or that county might not have as good of an evacuation plan as others.
Now, don't they time it, Warren? Don't they time it too? Like certain counties leave at this time, didn't they? I feel like they've done that before.
I know that they have their estimates of how long it will take, theoretically, to evacuate. Like, take for example the prototypical case, the Keys. How long will it take to get people out from Key West and Marathon up Route 1, up that single, highway back up through Homestead and north? And so, that also plays into, how much time the forecasters try to give these communities when a storm is approaching.
Right.
As far as when put the watches out. And then I work across the hall from, there's actually is a FEMA office located within the Hurricane Center, a coordination office. And right now there's more people flowing in. There's a lot of coordination that happens on the phone with people in there trying to get the information to flow down. And we try to give people as much warning as possible. But of course, sometimes storms will change course or weaken or whatever. And, it's always that balancing act. You don't want to make people afraid unnecessarily, but at the same time, you want to make sure that when you need them to pay attention and take action, they do it. So, it is a balancing act, and we're always trying to find better ways. That's one of the things that the Hurricane Center does during the off season. Is there's an inordinate number of conferences and stuff that the people attend to try and figure out how best to communicate the messages so that people will take action when they need to.
But don't, like local emergency managers, don't they sometimes time it to where they tell, this part of the city evacuate between this hour and this hour just to help with the flow a little bit?
I've heard of that. Yeah, I've heard of that. I don't know if they all do, but I have heard.
Okay. Because that's something I think would be helpful.
Yeah, but Warren, I think you hit the nail on the head because, we could have told people in, along the coast of Southeast Texas to evacuate a week ago, but, just in case, something might have happened. But like you said, that would do us no good in the future. Say this, if this were a bust, you'd have another storm that would be the exact same, that would rapidly intensify, and no one would take you seriously. So I think that's part of the problem, is that we can't give people as much of a warning as a big people in a big city might need because of future situations. So,
well, and Warren talked about timing the exodus, and there was an article in the Tampa Bay Times by Caitlin Johnston just back in May, and it was mentioned that in Tampa Bay being in a city that hasn't seen a direct strike for nearly 100 years, and they were talking about how it's already a traffic issue in Tampa Bay when there's no hurricane. And they said I don't know if this Pinellas County.
Pinellas.
Pinellas
County, a level D evacuation gives 585,000 people, which is half the county's population, 36 hours to crawl across the Courtney Campbell Causeway, Howard Frankland, and Gandy Bridges.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people. Over half a million people, 36 hours to get across 3 bridges.
And nobody gets a flat, right?
Yeah.
Right.
No one
or overheats or runs out of gas.
Right.
Oh gosh.
So I'll say this because Kim, you brought up a good thing, because part of the other thing in the article, there were 3 tips that I thought sounded great. We're already in evacuation with Harvey, but 3 of the tips, one of them you brought up, which is have a plan and know where to go, because not everyone has to drive 100 miles in an evacuation. Sometimes 10 miles is good enough. Yeah. So kind of know where you can go, have a plan, and it doesn't always require that you have to go across the state to do it. The second tip is don't have to. So if you're not to evacuate, or if you're not in an area that's being warned, don't feel like you have to go, because you're potentially just clogging up the roads as well, and you might be safe where you're at. Let the experts kind of help dictate that. At least that will help. Some people will still make that decision, and that's understandable. The third thing they said is know what evacuation zone you live in. And I know that's been a discussion in the past as well, is just people not knowing. We talked with Dr. Laura Myers about this, just not knowing where they live when they look at a map. Yeah. And you kind of need to know where you live when you look at a map, a county map, a city map, a state map, so you know if you are in an area that needs to go.
Right. Yeah. So I guess they do warn by zones, like evacuate by zone. So yeah, definitely.
I think maybe that's where our social media and our technology is probably going to help people out a little bit more now than it did from decades ago. Because now you can pull up maps and things like that of what zone I'm in, as opposed to I got to turn into channel whatever to see what's going on. And
yeah, you have to be careful about misinformation though too, because someone might post. I just saw someone post on Twitter, "Oh, looks like Hurricane Harvey is going to be Cat 1 or tropical storm. Looks like a new model just came in." So you got to watch stuff like that too on Twitter, because the misinformation is.
Or station apps, whatever, so they could get that information out.
What about reverse 911, or something like that, where there's just a phone call that comes to your cell phone, or a text message that says, where you, because if they know where you live, they could actually send a message that says you have to evacuate. I don't know if that's even.
Is that 116? Is that 119? What's
I don't know. Well, I think it's like they all of a sudden.
Are
you?
They know where you live.
The emergency center calls you and tells you, or sends you a text message and says, hey, because they know where you live, they know your address, and they say, well, okay, you live here, now you need to evacuate. Or, you know what I mean? Just in that way.
It's phone spam, but for a good reason.
Yeah, for good reason. But I can see how that could be helpful to people, that aren't aware, get a message, get an alert on their phone.
Right. Well, we're going to go ahead. I know Warren's got a date with Harvey, so we're going to take our final break so listeners can hear the swan song, the final farewell, the singing Fat Lady. It's the final edition of Brady's Storm School.
Oh, wow. Fat Lady, come on!
It ends with a twist. It ends with a little twist. So if you're watching us, you got to listen to our podcast.
You
a
have
little
to.
twist at the final edition of Brady's Storm School. He's not in school anymore. That's why he's not. That's why we're not going to have him do it. But anyway, the rest of you, go ahead and refill your drinks. When we come back, it's time for Weather Fools, and we've got some great WX resources for you. And those of you watching on Oklahoma Weather Tracker TV, thanks for tuning in. You know, we're here every Thursday at 8 o'clock. Don't miss our new show, which is going to be on September 7th with none other than meteorologist and creator of your Oklahoma Weather Tracker TV, William Cole, is going to be our guest. So we will see you guys next week.
Great.
All right.
All right.
Great job, Warren.
Okay, Warren.
Seriously, Warren.
Excellent,
Thanks
Warren.
again, Warren.
Guys, we might have to have Warren back, right, to hear some more
think so.
stories.
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
That was pretty awesome.
Yeah, we can do that.
Give yourself a
Certainly do
raise,
that.
man.
Yeah.
Part due, and you can bring a drink next time. We'll have you in January. Hopefully nothing
Yeah,
going
when it's nice
on.
and quiet and I can drink
know,
and you
dude.
get the real stories.
If the day after tomorrow happens, man, you're going to be working hard in January.
That's
Yeah, there you go.
Just out of curiosity, what is your beverage of choice, Warren?
Well, I mean, what I was going to have for this is when we would go down to St. Croix to do our forward operating location, there's this one bar that made killer painkillers, which are rum and cream de cacao and pineapple juice, orange juice, and nutmeg on top. And those are dangerous. I was going to take one of those. And,
the painkiller.
Oh, yeah, you were working in St. Croix. Yeah.
Well, you know,
Siren song. I hear that.
in all honesty,
Poor
I will
thing.
say I always felt when people thank me for my service, I always feel just a bit guilty about that because, you know, I think to myself, I never had to go over to I mean, my definition of the sandbox was St. Croix.
Yeah.
I never had to go to Iraq or Afghanistan
I
or
know
everything.
exactly what you mean. Yeah.
But you flew into a hurricane, multiple.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what,
It's
all the
rational.
airmen and women flying tonight are happy you didn't pull out a painkiller tonight before.
That's right.
And the sun is really strong. Watch out. Don't get burned down there when you're down there.
Yeah.
It's like the pilots are like, but you know, this is where Warren sent us, but it looks so sunny here. Where the heck are we? It's like you're in Canada. Why
Give me an umbrella drink.
Warren, I'll be going down to Florida in 2 weeks. Keep an eye on Florida for me, will you?
Hey, as I tell everyone, I'm in prediction, not production.
All right, thanks, Warren. Good luck
Thanks,
tonight.
Warren.
Take care of
Thanks
yourself.
much.
Keep
Take
in
care.
touch.
Okay, I'll follow up
All
with
right,
you.
we'll do.
All
All right,
right.
Warren's
Bye,
out.
Warren. Okay. Oh,
He was great.
he's on.
That was fabulous.
Thanks, Kim.
Oh my gosh.
I'm not kidding. He would
Thank
literally
you.
sit at the desk and lean back in his chair and take a 2-minute snooze, and he would be out. That's hilarious. Like, Warren, really, literally, get up. We're ready.
Would they be like, and we're back in 10. Warren, 10. He's like, yes.
Phil, I think next year our goal is to have our podcast aboard a Hurricane Hunters jet in a hurricane.
That would be awesome.
That probably wouldn't be realizable unless we had like a billion.
Like the vomit comet.
Yeah.
We could have one. We could see if we could get one person up there, or have Warren up there, and we can interview him while he's up there.
There you go.
I'll interview him. I'll be the interviewer.
Hey, I wonder why his voice is fluctuating up and down all the time. All right. So coming out of break, we got Maz WX resources.
Who's got him?
I do.
I'm afraid.
Yeah, you should be.
You should be. Yeah, you should be.
One of you tell me again what I have to do. Okay, so I click on the green thing over here, and then it pulls up. It says share your screen, and then do I first hit share, the blue button down there, and then first I hit what I want you to see.
No, you got to hit share first before you can pull up your.
Share, because you're just sharing your
So
screen.
hit share first.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
and then
Just
I
don't
hit
hit Sunny, and then
pick
you
what
hit
you want to
share.
show.
Do you see
And
it?
then hit the tab of whatever. Yeah.
Do you see it or not?
Yeah, we do.
That's your
Oh,
weather.
yeah, we
do.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
I got a few of them.
SPF1.
God, we're gonna get cartoons for the next 20 episodes. We're gonna get memes and cartoons from
These are
him.
the ones I had 2 weeks ago, and I never got to share them.
Oh,
So I've got.
Wait,
you.
was Warren's name Hunts the Wind? Was that his name in the group chat? I just noticed that.
What?
There's Hunts.
So
Oh
somebody-
wait, Hunt like.
Oh yeah, Hunts the Wind. You're
hunting
right.
the wind.
Oh,
I
yeah.
get it.
That's
I
cool.
didn't get it at first.
So somebody on our live chat says, "Oh, please let Kim have some resources." I laughed tears at the Halloween Google from the last.
I know it.
Fucking Halloween Google. God, those
Alright,
skeletons literally were scaring the shit out of me. I was like,
I had to stop. Oh,
okay,
no.
so Phil and Brady, weather resources, and Maz, don't forget episode 34 show notes. Hey, weather fools, I've got one.
I do too. I call dibs on the Trump one.
I've got weather fools too. I think wait a
Kim's
minute,
got her
which one-
cartoon.
Yeah, that's
So wait. So weather resources was Brady and Kim and Phil.
No, Phil and Brady. Kim, did you have a weather resource?
Oh, I do, but I didn't
I'm
really
not gonna count
research. Okay, all right.
No,
And I
won't
do
it
have
then.
one. I do have one, but
Do you?
yeah, I found a really
She
cool
doesn't
website,
sound
but-
excited about it.
I know.
Well, I love the website. I don't know it enough to really explain it. So maybe I'll wait for 2 weeks on
You
this
didn't know the skeletons well either, but you know.
one. Yes, I did. Did a lot of selfies with them.
Okay, I missed that. I was out for a second there. I lost signal. What?
Okay.
She's
Kim,
gonna
did you
wait.
have a weather
I think I'm
resource?
going to wait just because I found
Okay.
a great site, but I just didn't do enough research on it. So
So
I'm
Brady-
gonna-
Okay, but
Phil.
yeah,
Brady
but
and
are we still, Kim? Are you still doing a weather fool?
yes, I'll
Yes.
use my little cartoons.
You are.
Yeah.
How
so
many of
Kim's got
those you
weather
got? I don't want you to have to. I don't want you to rattle off a ton of them. Let's just do
Just I've got
one or
3.
two.
I'll
Oh,
do
Phil,
2.
she can rattle off 3. Come
They could be
on.
really fast. I just
Yeah, I like
That's
it. I like
So I'm
it.
not
Alright.
doing a weather
Alright.
resource.
Give the
Okay.
fans what they
All right.
want.
Exactly.
That's true. That's true. Got to help us all. That's true. Okay, and
Hey,
then
what's
don't
the
forget
what's
Brady.
the handbook? What's that about?
What's what?
Oh,
the-
me?
the
That's
hand-
my weather. That's
Oh,
my
that's
weather
yours.
resource.
Okay, I got you.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
I'll
don't
do you
take my
last then.
shit.
Why don't?
Yeah.
Don't
I'm just
take
gonna hit share. All right.
You know, I stopped putting my interview questions on here because you steal them all.
I thought those were for us.
No, those are
So
mine. To bring.
stingy.
If you guys bring them up, then I'm like, all right, that's been asked. I check it off, but I wanted to make sure I have questions too. I do my prep. I expect you guys to do your own damn prep.
No, I've done all the prep I need. I've got a backpack. and
Kids,
I've got
let's
some
go,
canned-
kids. Come on.
Got some canned
Thank you
food.
for your
I'm
service,
doomsday
Phil.
prepping all the time.
All right,
God.
all right, shit. Here we go. Let's do this.
Hunts
Come
the
in.
wind.
Oh no, you're counting Maz in. Maz, you're taking. it.
Maz, you
All
ready?
right. All right.
All right, in 3, 2.
All right. Welcome back. Hey, we've been talking while y'all been gone. We've been having fun, but it's time now for weather resources. We got a couple of them for tonight. I'm still curious to see what Kim's going to do, but it probably won't be for resources. So Brady, you better start us off. What do you got?
All right, so this is on topic. We have Hurricane Harvey, right? That's ongoing, and so a lot of you, people are trying to. A lot of you weather geeks are probably trying to find what's the best place to find some satellite imagery of the hurricane. And here I have. Is this working? My screen. Wait, I just have an infinity screen.
Don't you dare make fun of me.
Okay, can you guys see my screen? Right.
There
Yeah.
you go.
Okay, cool. So this is a
Can you hear me?
satellite imagery. Yeah, this is a satellite imagery page. It's a little confusing at first, but if you can tell, like here's a single image, here's an HTML loop, here's a flash image loop, an animated GIF loop, visible, shortwave, infrared, water vapor imagery, and then here's like a long wave infrared channel enhancements. My favorite. So here's the visible. Let's take a look at that one. This is Hurricane Harvey. This is centered at Hurricane Harvey's. How cool is that? They literally have a satellite that they centered on the hurricane. You can see this is the past couple hours of imagery. And then once if you want to go and check out the satellite imagery at night, you'll take a look at the shortwave radio IR, and then there's Hurricane Harvey. So, and it's becoming visible because it's becoming nighttime. So this is, just a really cool place to go take a look at, satellite imagery of hurricanes, of really anything, but usually they concentrate on hurricanes, and that's from a NOAA site. Just type in like SSD NOAA weather satellite. I'll have the URL of the homepage, which is actually the Caribbean imagery site, or at least that's one part of their site as well. So
How many different channels do they have now from satellite?
You know, they
Anybody
have
know?
I mean,
Wow, it's
they
amazing.
have a bunch. I mean, look at all these different filters too. Like my favorite is the rainbow filter, where it actually, you know, it adds basically different color schemes to allow you to kind of visualize the hurricane better. So it's pretty cool.
Nice. I like the HBO one.
Yeah,
That's nice.
same.
All right. I get better reception too. All right, Phil, what do you got?
All right, so my WX resource is a great storm chasing resource. It's the Storm Chasing Handbook. It's by Tim Vasquez. You can find it on Amazon. You can't get it new on paperback, but you still can get it Kindle for $9.99. This is by far the best storm chasing resource I've come across, and I've read a couple books, and it is very in-depth, great forecasting, education, it's very educational. It's slightly, I think this is the second edition, but it's a little outdated with some of the information, but it's really not important information. It's like area restaurants, you know, and stuff like that if you happen to be in the plains. But the forecasting information and how to storm chase and what to look for, all that kind of stuff is on the tee all the time. Love it.
Looks great.
Did you read the first version?
No, that was the version that I got.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how much better is the second than the first?
Yeah.
I don't know. I just go off of stars. Got 5 stars.
Oh,
All right.
rookie mistake, Phil.
If you want more information, check out stormfrontfreaks.com and look for episode 34 show notes for links. Brady? Fools.
All right, guys, it's time for the weather fools. Now, I know a lot of you are like, okay, here comes Brady again with some stupid weather fools, but guess
Exactly.
what? I love it, and everyone else loves it, so you can just deal with it.
Thanks for teeing it up.
This is the weather fools, where we look at the past week to 2 weeks. We look at images, we look at videos, things that'll make you laugh when it comes to weather-related topics.
Cartoons.
Usually cartoons, yes, we got some cartoons this week. Right, Dina? Tell us, what's your weather fool this
Who?
week?
Who?
Or Kim. Sorry. Out of the one.
He did finish his grape juice. He
He
did.
did. That's great.
Hey, you know what, Dina? That was for you. That was a tribute to you. Kim, go ahead.
Okay. All right. So let me make sure I do this correctly here. Let's see. All right. There we go. You see it?
See it? Lovely.
Okay. So we have, now this was in honor of the heat wave from 2 weeks ago when I really had this ready for us, but we didn't get to it. All right. So we have a snowman at the beach, drinking a drink, got the hat on, and his wife is trying to put sunscreen on him. And notice it says SPF 1 billion. I thought that was hilarious. And
So is the snowman your weather fool in this case?
that is my weather fool right there.
The
Okay,
snowman
here's
is the
a good
weather
one.
fool. You
Here's
shouldn't
a
go
good
out in
one.
the sun if you're a snowman.
Now here's proof of global warming. If you want that
What's my teal G-string doing on the...
Oh, Phil, no.
out.
Oh, I do not want to see you wearing that. Oh, God.
So this is
What are we looking at?
guys, anybody that's trying to, disprove it or want to prove it. This is the image I think that will happen. So back in 1720, had the bloomers. This is actually proving global warming by underwear.
That's incredible.
By
That is
underwear.
underwear.
So
Incredible.
bloomers in 1720 by, we have more of the boy cut by 1970, and then we get to the thong by 2006, and so that's proof right there. Okay. So
People got to go look at the show notes to see these. It's great.
What does 2006 even cover? What
Yeah.
is that? What's
It's
the
a
purpose
European
of
cut.
wearing
Phil,
it?
it's
Yes.
a European cut.
North America.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and I think my other one went away. Darn it. Let me see. Oh shoot, it did. I don't know where it went.
Ooh, bacon. It says bacon.
I know, and I
It says
think you guys
bacon.
would really like that one, but
Just
okay.
visualize a piece of bacon. All right. So,
Yeah.
weather fool. Phil, you weather fool, right? Did you say
I do have a weather fool to share with you. This is you guys might remember a little Hurricane Matthew that went through about 10 months ago, and this was an article that talked about Hilton Head received its first FEMA reimbursement check 10 months later, 10 months after the hurricane came through. And listen to this. So this is Hilton Head spent $46 million to just fix up their town. They had 26 million in reserves, and they spent all of it. They had to borrow 20 million in loans, and they finally, 10 months later, they just get their first check from FEMA for $1.3 million of the 36 that they're eligible for repayment.
Jeez.
So my weather fool is just, obviously FEMA does some great things, but it's just it's government and how slow it can be.
Yeah.
When if you're a town or a city or even a home, personal individual, and you don't have money to spend to fix, and then you have to wait this long to get all the paperwork done and everything submitted and everything approved, and finally I get my first check and it covers like a not even a tenth
a toilet
Yeah.
a toilet for each house.
That is an installment,
Ridiculous.
right?
It's crazy. It is crazy.
Is that an
it
installment?
better be.
Yeah.
That's so sad. That's terrible.
All right,
Yeah,
Phil, that
better
was
be.
great. So my weather fool this week, some of you may have seen this. So the eclipse that happened on August 21st, we have Donald Trump going out. Look, he's waving hi to the people, taking a look at the tie, and he looks up. He's like, oh no! He looks directly at the eclipse, which is a no-no. And eventually he did put on the glasses, but I think he did that a couple more times actually in the video. He just stared at the eclipse, and I'm like, come on, Donald, just set a good, example for the country, please. Because there's someone watching that, that's in the hills of like West Virginia, and just like, well, he did it, so I'm going to do it. And he's just staring straight up. So
I don't see how anybody could even look at it longer than
Give
a
some
second
glasses to
anyway.
Bear they gave him to.
Yeah, it's like their poor young son is just sitting there while they're staring at
yeah.
He's like, what about me, Dad?
What about by the way, so you can find all of these videos and images on our stormfrontfreaks.com episode 34 show notes section.
See, you've been with us since day one, and you still can't pronounce it either. It's
I
hard.
can,
challenging.
baby. I can. It's late. It's
We
late.
did that for purpose. We did that on purpose. All right, so MJ, we have any listener questions and responses?
Hey, we do. We got a note from Jennifer Norton about a few days ago. Said, hey, just listening to your Gary England podcast. That was episode 32. And we'd been talking about some things going to school and what kinds of things go together with weather. And so she gave some pointers. That psychology or sociology might be a good minor or concentration with weather. Thinking about how do you get the message out and get people to listen, sort of what we were talking about with the hurricane evacuations. Computer user experience and computer things like Warren actually did. And then learn about drones, learn to pilot a drone. And she gave a couple other suggestions as well, and also said, I enjoy your show. It makes my commute much more tolerable. So
There we go.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Nice.
We didn't even ask Warren, what about drones?
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's a good point.
Get him back on the line. Put him back on.
Show.
Well, the government would probably be last with that kind of technology, though. They'll be private.
It's funny. I was gonna ask that before we started the show, but I thought, that might be a good question later during the show, but we didn't have time to get into it.
You should have put it in the notes.
Would be a good
so
question.
someone could have-
Yeah, so you could have asked it. All right. So that about does it for this episode of Stormfront Freaks podcast and Stormfront Freaks Raw. Thanks for listening and watching. Hey, please take the time, leave us a review, and subscribe to the show, or send us an email at questions@stormfrontfreaks.com to let us know what your favorite part of the show is for you. We'd love to hear about that. Hey, special thanks to our guest, Warden Madden. And our next episode in 2 weeks, we're recording live on September 7th, and it'll be with meteorologist and creator of Oklahoma Weather Tracker TV, William Cole. So that ought to be interesting to hear his story. So go to stormfrontfreaks.com or our YouTube channel if you would like to watch it live. You guys got anything else to close with? Anybody? Last call?
Mm.
All right, so for MJ,
Good night, John Boy.
for MJ, Maz, Brady, and Kim, I'm gonna signal the all clear, and we'll catch you.
Do you remember our names?
Bye.
Peace. Bless up, y'all. Bless up.
Oh, there you are.
Good night.
I lost you guys.
I know we were like,
You broke up a little bit there at the ending, but it's okay.
Did I break up at the ending?
we lost
A little bit.
you. Yeah.
Gonna have to
All right,
edit that
I'll
out,
just-
Phil.
I'll-
Gonna have to
I'll
Missed,
cut
missed
it
a
out,
couple
man.
of the names. Missed a couple of the names.
I missed. Oh, okay. All right.
Everyone thinks you're
Well,
mad
hey.
at whoever that was. So.
Okay.
Let's re-record. Brady and Kim, I'm gonna signal the all clear, and we'll catch you next time.
It literally the same
No.
thing.
Still alive.
Same thing.
Did I still break up?
Yes.
Yeah.
Same thing.
All right. So for MJ, Maz, Brady, and Kim, I'm gonna signal the all clear, and we'll catch you next time.
There you go.
Adios.
Bye, everybody.
Take 42.
Who's stealing my broadband
Put it in the show notes.
bandwidth, man? All right.
All right.
Good job,
Stop
guys.
in the line.
Kim,